Hello and welcome to our next bit in Philippians. Today we'll be going from verse 1 to 3 in chapter 4. As always, it'd be great to take a moment to pray and ask for God's wisdom and conviction as we read his word. So beginning at verse 1. Therefore, my brothers and sisters, you whom I love and long for, my joy and crown, stand firm in the Lord in this way, dear friends. I plead with Euodia and I plead with Syntyche to be of the same mind in the Lord. Yes, and I ask you, my true companion, help these women since they have contended at my side in the cause of the gospel, along with Clement and the rest of my co-workers whose names are in the book of life. In a time when we're not able to spend time face to face with people, actually really with them, our hearts ache for our friends and family. It feels against every impulse to not embrace our neighbour as we deliver essentials or as we move to the other side of the street for our daily exercise. As thankful as we may be for technology, our longing for the day when we can gather again intensifies. It's true, you really don't know what you've got until it's gone. As his letter draws to a close, Paul reminds the Philippians of some of the stark realities of walking together as he directs our attention to a disagreement among two sisters. But notice his tone and concern in verse 2 and 3. I plead with Euodia and I plead with Syntyche to be of the same mind in the Lord. Yes, and I ask you, my true companion, help these women since they have contended at my side in the cause of the gospel, along with Clement and the rest of my co-workers whose names are in the book of life. Throughout his letter, unity has been at the core of Paul's message. Now he names two women. By naming them together, Paul isn't out to shame them. Instead, his pleading places on equal level of responsibility in their disagreement. Notice too that Paul doesn't leave this dispute as a private affair between two friends. He appeals for the help of another to move towards them and assist them. This is a time for the reality and the unity of believers through Christ to be lived out visibly. Gospel community is messy. Whether we've walked with Jesus for just a few short months or for decades, we mustn't forget that. Perhaps the surprise here is that these women are considered mature, fellow gospel workers. We've all felt the effects and consequences of disunity in our immediate families and wider church family, sometimes to a greater or sometimes a lesser extent. At some point, we've all felt excluded, our actions been misinterpreted, or felt the pressure of having said some things that have hurt others. Paul encourages that this disunity should not be taken lightly. Even while we're physically separated, a divided people is contrary to the gospel. We need each other. As those whose names are in the book of life, verse 3, we must be, perhaps more than ever, those who are the first to take a step towards one another for the sake of unity. It's part of what it looks like to identify as citizens of his kingdom, to share in Paul's heart for the Philippians and for one another. Verse 1 says, Therefore, my brothers and sisters, you whom I love and long for, my joy and crown, stand firm in the Lord in this way, dear friends. Paul is inviting us to put into practice much of that which he called us to do in chapter 2, to lay down our lives for one another. Specifically, that call here is to lay down our lives for our family in Christ, for those who God has stirred our hearts to love and long for, even when that means admitting to our own failings. As we do so, confident that as we do, he will assist us along the way. So just a couple of points now for consideration and discussion. Firstly, how can we cultivate in our Christian communities some of the warmth and concern for the community as displayed by Paul? Secondly, as you think back on this week, and the Lord brings to mind personal disputes between you and friends or family, What will it look like for you to seek forgiveness or forgive? How does Paul model a tone and approach as you seek to do this? Once again, thank you so much for listening. My thoughts and prayers are with you, especially as we think about unity and reconciliation, which is never easy, but thankfully it is possible with Christ. So till next time, and God bless.